Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the debut of the Dynasty Masters Fantasy Football Podcast. I am today's host, Jason Miller, and I am joined beside me by Doug Carroll and Justin Geeting, and we are your fantasy football experts. Now, we have been playing fantasy football for quite a while, and these guys beside me have been playing probably longer than I have. But as far as Dynasty football goes, we are going to be focusing mostly on Dynasty football, but we're going to talk about everything from redraft leagues to just, fantasy football fun. So first, guys, I wanted to, introduce you and have you guys explain a little bit about yourselves and how long you've been playing fantasy football, and just go from there. So, Doug, we'll start with you.
As Jason, thank you very much for the kind introduction. As Jason mentioned, my name is Doug Carroll. I've been playing fantasy football since about 1994, 95. My brother, Tony Carroll, introduced me to fantasy football. I was a year or two out of high school. Back then, it was the internet was just kind of a newborn at that point. There was not, to my knowledge, any of the websites that there are right now doing fantasy football. And we would actually get the Monday morning and then the Tuesday morning USA Today, and we would go into the box score and manually calculate up the scores for games. So that's the prehistoric ages for fantasy football right there. There was definitely some controversy around close games. Right. You'd go back and check it multiple times to make sure the commissioner didn't miss something when he was calculating the scores. But I've been doing it for, like I said, about 22 years. Dynasty, I have just started doing that in the last 3 years, I believe.
Yeah.
And, I've had quite a bit of success with it. I'm in a couple of Dynasty League title games coming up this week. It's great. Dynasty is I think it's good, the future of fantasy football.
I totally agree with that, and you're kind of old school when it comes to, fantasy football and all. And with Dynasty football...
Overall, I'm kind of old school. I'm definitely the senior member of the crew up here.
Exactly. Sure. With Dynasty football, folks, it's, in my opinion, it takes a little bit more skill than just redraft leagues or, playing on some of your, various daily websites that you can go to. I think with Dynasty football, it's a lot more of, schedules. It's a lot more of, a lot more to do with quarterback play, with the draft.
Absolutely.
I mean, the draft has a huge part of it. So the great thing I think about Dynasty football is you could play redraft leagues and play maybe 3 or 4 months out of the year. Mm-hmm. But with Dynasty football, you really have to be aware the full year.
It is the real general manager experience. You are a general manager of your own team.
Right.
You are paying attention to college football because you want to know these players coming out because you're going to be drafting them onto your team right after the NFL draft takes place. Some leagues, like Justin, you and I are in a league that has a salary cap, so you actually have to worry about salary caps and all those implications of free agency. So it can get very, very complicated, and the more complicated, the better. I love it.
But for the most part, we will be just basically, focusing on Dynasty football, the players right now, just to get you to where you need to get to if you're just starting your Dynasty leagues. Just to get you started. A lot of people are intimidated to try Dynasty leagues because it is so much work, but it's so much fun.
Absolutely.
And so, Justin, tell us a little bit about yourself as well.
Well, I want to add something. In redraft, towards the end of the year, if a team is out of contention, that player won't check in at all, ever. With Dynasty, you're going to be engaged the whole season. It's not just the 2016 season that you're into. You're thinking about 2017, 18, and beyond. Mm-hmm. So it makes it really fun. So there's never a dull moment in Dynasty. And I think that's the biggest difference between that and redraft.
I agree.
But again, I'm Justin Geeting. I'm just head over heels for football, and I have been my whole life. My earliest memory of football is watching the Bears play the Patriots in the Super Bowl for the 85-86 championship. And I've played Dynasty football for 3 years now, and before that, I was in redraft since about 2002, somewhere around there. And I love it. I love everything about football, but I am head over heels for Dynasty.
Yep.
I collected football. Sorry, Jason. I collected football cards a lot, as some of you might have when you were growing up. And I remember talking about those 85-86 Patriots. Andre Tippett, remember the linebacker?
Yeah.
And on the back of his card, his Topps card, it said something about him being a black belt in karate, which I thought was the coolest thing ever. I thought he was probably the baddest man on the planet. Of course, the Bears beat him by about 85 points. So,
yeah. So you never heard of it?
44
No.
44 to 10, is that what it was?
Something like that. Yeah, he retired shortly after the game, I believe.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I have been playing Dynasty Leagues for about the last 9 years. I've been focused mostly on Dynasty Leagues. I like to say that I kind of got these guys kind of into it as well.
Definitely.
A little bit, but they've been playing a lot longer than I have. But I just focused more on the Dynasty because I loved the challenge. I really did.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I'll be the first person to tell you, when I started off in Dynasty Leagues, I wasn't fantastic because there's so much that you have to know about it. And there's really not a lot of podcasts out there or live, shows out there that can help you with Dynasty. Most of these shows are just focused on redraft leagues or daily leagues. They're more focused on standard or PPR. And, what I am finding is that, it takes a lot of effort to be able to, to be really, really good at Dynasty football. I'm in 3 championships right now myself. I'd like to think that I know quite a bit about Dynasty football. And all we're here to do is just to try to help you guys get started. And if you don't know who you need to start or don't know who you need to draft, as you'll see, we're going to do a couple of shows probably over the next couple of months. But where we'll really heat up at is towards draft time.
Absolutely.
When draft time comes, we're really going to be able to help you with who we think that you should be looking for to draft, how to build your team, whether or not you want to go running back heavy or wide receiver heavy, as well. But the first thing that I want to talk about, guys, is I want to talk about this season. So let's focus on this season. And why don't you guys just give me your opinion on how this season has went? Because this season, in my opinion, has been probably the craziest, most unpredictable season in football that we've seen in a long time. So Justin, I'll start with you.
Absolutely. You go into the 2016 season and you know that the previous handful of years you can see a pattern with running backs and wide receivers, and you see the stability that the wide receiver, especially at the top of the draft, can give you as opposed to the running back. Running backs, it's a high volatility position, and if you spend a high draft pick on a running back, there's a strong chance, actually 31 to about 45% chance that running back is going to get injured, and then it goes up with a significant injury on percentages. So I drafted this year in redraft and in Dynasty with the thought that I'm going to get the most stable position, which is wide receiver. And that wasn't the case this year at all. I was let down by DeAndre Hopkins. You can just go right down the list with wide receivers that underproduced. Allen Robinson. So that was the biggest thing for me. I thought I knew what I wanted to do this year, and it turned out that wasn't exactly the best move.
And what about you, Doug?
Yeah, I think that Justin definitely hit on some points there. I'm in 5 Dynasty leagues, or no, sorry, 5 leagues overall, 3 Dynasty leagues. I ended up making the title game in 2 of the Dynasty, 2 of the 3 Dynasty leagues. And the other one I lost by a couple of tackles. There's a IDP, defensive players, and it was came down to like a minute to go or 2 minutes to go in the. I see you took my Cowboys off the screen there, Deke and Zach. What are you doing?
Yeah, your Cowboys.
By the way, I'm a Cowboys fan.
Yeah.
Eagles.
Justin, Eagles.
Panthers.
Okay.
So we don't always agree. And guys, we're not always going to agree.
Right.
So the thing is they may say something and I may not agree with it. I may say something and they may not agree with it.
But it came down to a couple of minutes left in the Panthers and Skins game on Monday night in my 3rd Dynasty League. And if the Panthers would have got a first down and continued with their drive, they would have ran the clock out. Instead, they turned the ball over, punted. Skins got the ball, a couple of defensive tackles by Tom Hardy later, and or Thomas Davis rather, and I was done in that league by like 7 points. So I've had pretty good success, but it seems to be as with all things in fantasy football, a little bit of luck thrown in there to be able to make a couple of those championship games. I went really heavy wide receiver a couple of years ago when we drafted those leagues. Coming into this year. In one league in particular, I thought that I was so set for the next 10 years. I had Alshon Jeffrey.
Right.
I had Keenan Allen. I had DeAndre Hopkins. I had Brandon Cooks. And I had Allen Robinson. And then I drafted Laquan Treadwell coming into this year. The only guy who really has panned out in any measure at all was Brandon Cooks. Right. The other guys have been either injured, like Keenan Allen, or in Robinson and Hopkins' case, just absolute flops.
And that's a testament to how different this season has been compared to other seasons. So, who's your biggest surprise of this season?
My biggest surprise for me, Melvin Gordon. I expected him to improve this year. How can you not after that god-awful year he had last year? But the the amount of touchdowns that he's scored, the amount of touches that he's got this year, the catches that he's made, I'm impressed.
And who was your biggest surprise, Doug?
Biggest surprise this year for me was probably my Cowboys, and how it relates to fantasy football would be probably Dak Prescott. Ezekiel Elliott wasn't as big of a surprise. I did expect him to come in and behind that offensive line be good. I guess it's a bit of a surprise of how good he's been.
Right.
1,500 yards rushing.
Ridiculous.
Incredible.
Ridiculous. And Dak Prescott, who would have seen that coming? He was drafted in the 4th round, numerous quarterbacks taken before him. It's great to stand behind a great offensive line where you don't have to worry about getting sacked like David Carr. But, to be as cool as he is back there and to just lead his team as he's done, just a huge surprise.
He's so impressive. His feet, always moving.
Yeah.
His mechanics are so good.
Yeah.
You can tell that he's going to be a long-term quarterback. Russell Wilson is probably the best comparison I could make to Dak Prescott.
I think mentally he seems like a very good comparison to Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
Both of them basically the same expression on their face all game long.
Elite decision makers for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
And my biggest surprise is Jordan Howard. I honestly did not think that Jordan Howard coming out this year was going to be the
Especially with Langford on board.
Well, yeah, I didn't think. I mean, they seem, it's not like they seemed like super committed to Langford, but I did not think that he was going to come out like he did. I mean, the last couple of weeks he's came out gangbusters. And so the thing is that I think you're looking at a running back that's going to be with him for quite a while. I don't think Cutler's going to be there next year. I think they're going to have to find another quarterback if they don't keep the quarterback they have now. And I think Alshon's not going to be there next year too, so they're going to have to depend on the run.
They have a very interesting offense heading into next year.
Yeah.
Wide receiver wise, here in the last 2 or 3 weeks, with Barkley being the quarterback.
Yeah.
He has found like a different 100-yard receiver for like 3 weeks in a row. Some guys I'm not even that familiar with. Thompson last week.
Yeah,
Cameron Meredith.
Cameron
I think is going to be a very good wide receiver.
Ultra athletic player, and it's incredible that Matt Barkley is doing well. He was at one point the #1 overall draft pick in a ton of mocks. He came out.
Yeah.
So I mean, he has that pedigree to be that good. So it'll be interesting to see. And they have good interior play on the offensive line as well.
Right.
Marquise Wilson flashed for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Kevin White looked like he was starting to come on before he got injured once again this year.
Yeah.
They've got 4 or 5 different receiving options going into next year, and they all seem to be these big 6'3", 6'4" guys. Very interesting to see what happens with
And
them
on
next
that
year.
note, I would say that, as far as what you said with Kevin White, I'm going to transition into biggest disappointments.
Okay.
That's one of my biggest
enough.
disappointments right now is Kevin White.
Okay.
Kevin White is, I've got a couple of them, but Kevin White's my #1 because everybody was hyping him up. He looked fantastic in camp, and then he was so fast. You couldn't keep up with him. And even when he played, to me, at the age that he is right now, he looks behind the curve a little bit. I mean, yes, he's explosive.
And there's something to the age curve, and we'll get into that, I'm sure, in episodes down the
Right,
road.
right. So he had one great year in college, and then this year it's not like he started off doing anything fantastic. I do think he was starting to get into his niche a little bit as the year was going on, and when you switch quarterbacks as much as you do, it hurts. But he's got to stay healthy, or he's going to be one of the biggest busts of that draft class.
Absolutely.
I would, yeah. I mean, I did think that he was starting to come on.
I do.
Before he got injured, but you can certainly be a disappointment and a bust by getting injured over and over.
Right.
If you get out there, you can get out there and look like gangbusters. Keenan Allen was a big disappointment for me this year.
Right.
That guy is a guaranteed when healthy. He's a lock for 8 receptions for 90 to 120 yards.
Right.
He's probably going to put up 6 to 10 TDs a year. He just, once again, the injury bug hit him.
What kind of disappointment did you have?
I want to piggyback a little bit on Kevin White. The first year that he was out, he had shin splints. Right. And that's from working too hard. He worked way too hard, which is a good quality to have. But because of that, he's behind. But he had just an ultra productive year at college, and he's a freak.
You've always liked him.
Along the lines of Julio Jones, kind of freaky.
Right.
Much more raw, of course. But my biggest disappointment this year has to be Alshon Jeffrey. I took him high in both my redraft leagues. And although he produced last week, he's been an incredible disappointment for the whole entire year. you would think that somebody going into a free agency year would produce more. As big as he is, as few weapons as they had early in the season,
Right.
you think that he would excel, and that wasn't the case at all. And it just looked like maybe there was some effort issues at times. I don't want to put that on the books and say that's the truth, but to me that's what it looked like, reading body language.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. He's definitely one of my selections. In one of my leagues that I mentioned earlier, he was one of my mainstay receivers, along with Keenan Allen.
Mm-hmm.
And even when DeAndre Hopkins and Allen Robinson fell off, I thought that I could rely on Alshon Jeffrey in a contract year to go out there and get a ton of targets. He's one of those guys that, when healthy, like a Jordan Reed, when 100% healthy, I'm going to start him every single week because he's that productive. Alshon has had problems with injuries.
Right.
That wasn't so much the issue this year. He just didn't.
Yeah, because he had bad quarterback. I mean, his quarterback play is, I think you got to give him a little bit of the benefit of the doubt, a little bit, because of the quarterback play
Right.
as well. But in your defense, it's a contract year.
It is a
No matter what
contract
the
year.
quarterback play is, you got to get out there and you got to play, and you got to demand that football. So
I don't know
agree.
if I don't know if I really gave my mine, and I'll try to turn off my computer sound here, like I warned you gentlemen to do. Do as I say, not as do as I do, not as I say, something like that. My biggest disappointment this year, Allen Robinson. Allen Robinson, just inexplicable what happened. Really inexplicable to me coming into the season. There was debate about maybe he'll regress a little bit. Nobody could have predicted this regression.
No.
I mean, I don't have his stats up here in front of me, but he's probably average, 3 receptions a game, something like that.
Yeah, it's been awful.
59 catches, 6 touchdowns is what he's got.
Is that right? Okay.
And that, I mean, if you think about where he was drafted at,
Absolutely.
and where everybody thought he was going to be, I mean, they had him in the top 5 of wide receivers.
Sure.
Yeah.
I got him in a redraft league in the back half of the first round, and I thought, these guys, this is a steal.
Yeah. Yeah.
In the back half, like 10, 11, 12, something like that, people were letting him go, and I thought, I got to scoop him up, so I did.
And his thing is, his deal's layered, because Blake Bortles is his quarterback, and Blake Bortles was just awful this year. His footwork is garbage. He has such a long throw, and he just appears to be inaccurate on every throw. So I know that plays into it for Allen Robinson, but again, reading his body language, it just didn't seem like he was into it very much.
Yeah, I agree.
But guys, when Marquise Lee's stats are better than Allen Robinson's, there's a problem.
I think that
And he has outscored Allen Robinson this year.
absolutely.
And that is absolutely ridiculous.
I think that what Justin said is very truthful, in that he has just had this lack of confidence. He's become down on himself, down on the team, down on his quarterback play, and it's just gotten worse and worse as the season goes along. He has a great matchup heading into Week 16.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got a juicy matchup, and I just can't play him because I got burnt last week because he had a
Oh,
juicy
yeah.
matchup last week, and he put up like one catch for 11 yards or whatever he did.
Yeah.
It's totally ridiculous. But Allen Robinson, biggest disappointment for me. I thought, in his third year, he would, just establish himself as one of the premier wide receivers in the league year in, year out.
And my disappointment, which I think, in my opinion, is the overall disappointment, has got to be Cam Newton. And the reason why I say Cam Newton is because if you were going to, at the beginning of this year in your dynasty drafts, if there was a quarterback that you were going to take, in the first or second round,
It was him.
it was probably
Yeah.
going to be Cam Newton.
He can run.
And I mean, I'm actually concerned about Cam Newton, and I'm a Panthers fan, okay? So I'm concerned about Cam, and the reason why I say that is because there's digression and then there's digression, okay? And he digressed by unbelievable amounts. I mean, if you look at last season, he had 3,837 yards passing, 35 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, and he rushed for 656 yards with 10 touchdowns. And this year, he's got 3,000 yards passing. He's got 17 touchdowns and 9 interceptions. Okay? And rushing, he's not even coming close to those numbers. And that's where I'm starting to wonder if the hits that he's taking are taking a toll on him, because he's not wanting to run. I think Greg Olson's losing a half a step and I think he's not getting as open. Kelvin Benjamin, I don't think is as good as everybody thought he was. I think, his numbers, he's flatlined. I think Kelvin Benjamin is a wide receiver 3 that had a great first year because of targets. Okay?
He had a great first couple of weeks of this year.
He did.
I was kicking myself for
He
not
did.
getting him, but now I'm glad that I didn't. So
He did. But the bottom line is that, when you're relying on Ted Ginn Jr., okay, as, your deep threat.
Yeah, that's disgusting.
I think they need to
That's
give
bad.
him some help wide receiver wise. And, like I said before, he has to be up there at the top for, the biggest disappointments of this
Right.
year. Because, I think that Super Bowl loss really affected him.
Absolutely.
And I think it's affected his play. Now, I will tell you, last week's game, it looked like he was starting to have fun again, and he played fantastic because all the pressure was off of him.
That's true.
And I think with Cam, the biggest thing right now is can he handle all the pressure that he's getting?
I would look for him to have a bounce back year next year.
I would buy him.
I would definitely buy him because his value should be pretty depressed in the offseason. I think he's a good buy, but like you said, the prospects of him year in and year out, because he is a relatively young quarterback still.
Guys, that's a 50% drop
Right?
off. Yes, but he had a 50% drop off.
Right. I think
he
these.
was highly inaccurate. Highly inaccurate this year.
Yeah.
That was a huge problem too.
The hits are definitely going to take a toll
The
on
hits,
him.
I think he was number 1 in quarterback hits
Yes.
for the year until a handful of weeks ago.
Yeah.
He
Yes.
dropped down to number 3, so they've got to find a way for him to stay in the pocket. But part of that issue too is his tackle play isn't epically great. I think his right
Right.
tackle is much better than his left tackle, but they still need to upgrade the offensive line.
And there's a lot of complaints that I hear, about the hits that he's taken to the head.
Right.
And there have been some hits to the head that should have been flagged or illegal, should have been suspensions.
100%.
Yep. But he gets himself in a lot of those situations where he takes on contact, and he's done that his whole career. And even as big as he is,
Right.
you just cannot do that as a quarterback. You're too valuable. You got to step out of bounds. You can't take that. You can't take on that linebacker. You just can't do it.
Well,
Absolutely.
and I think what will help him next year, if he is going to take that next step, because I still believe there's a next step after this drop off, is they've got to get another wide receiver like Steve Smith was to them.
Yep.
Steve, when the
Probably a
moment,
veteran
the
is what
moment
they
that
need.
Steve Smith left that team,
Mm-hmm.
they lost toughness. And I truly believe that if they would have had Steve Smith on their team in that Super Bowl last year, they would have won. And I truly believe that because I believe that Steve Smith is that tough player. And when they got popped in the mouth last year and everybody looked at Cam to be that person to step up, he didn't do it. And he folded. And so, yeah, in my opinion, I think he's the biggest disappointment. But let's move on to some of your unsung heroes. Or just give me one.
Actually, could we, in the interest of time, because we have a limited amount of time that will keep your interest, so we need to keep it going. How about Dynasty buys?
We can buy ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah,
that's
buy
fine.
or sells for
Yeah.
Dynasty players heading into the 2017 season.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Go, Justin.
I'll go first. I've got a couple. One specifically I like a lot, just on talent. Corey Coleman. He was doing solidly well before he broke his hand, and his yards per average is pretty high. I like him a lot. Once they start to build some stability in that organization, which I think that they'll gain, even though it's Cleveland and they've been horrible for almost 20 years, I really do believe that they're going in the right direction. I know it's hard to say for a team that'll probably go 0-16, but I absolutely believe that they're going to be doing it right. Corey Coleman, I thought he was a Odell Beckham light on tape.
I'm going to let you buy Corey Coleman all day long, and I'm not probably going to buy any shares because of the quarterback or the lack of the quarterback play. And that would take me to my buy, which is going to be Josh Doxson. Josh Doxson came out of TCU. I liked him in college. He's a little bit older for this what will be his second year next year. I think he's going to be 25 or something like that, which is a little bit older than I like to buy those guys. But he was pretty polished coming out of TCU, and he's going to be dropped into a Redskins offense that puts up a lot of points. And Kirk Cousins, not my favorite quarterback in the world, but I think he's a better fantasy quarterback than he is reality quarterback, and I think he will continue to put up pretty big numbers. And I think Doxson can be a very big beneficiary of that for the next 10 years or so. And they're also going to lose Deshaun Jackson and possibly Pierre Garçon to free agency because they're both unrestricted free agents at the end of the season.
But
And they have to sign Cousins.
well, yeah. But
And they still have to sign Cousins, that's correct.
well, they're going to sign him.
They have to.
But my question for you is this, and this will be one of our first, disagreements here.
Mm-hmm.
Why on earth in Dynasty football, would you take Josh Doxson, who, in my opinion, what I've seen this year in the red zone has stone hands and couldn't catch the ball this year to save his life. Every single time he got a red zone target, when he was healthy, he dropped it. And not pick Coleman. Now, I understand the quarterback. I get that. Coleman, you can't teach speed, and you can't teach athleticism, okay? When Coleman had a quarterback, like you said, that was right, and got him the ball, he delivered. When he got the ball thrown to him in the end zone, he delivered. So I'm asking you, why would you take Doxson over Coleman? Is it just preference? Or is it size? Because some guys I'm a big size receiver. Let's
keep it on football.
Yeah. I'm a big size receiver when it comes to size.
It matters, folks.
Yeah, it does matter. I'll pick 6'2" over 5'10" any day. But you know what? That's hard to say because Antonio Brown broke that mold.
Yeah. I've seen studies, and it's 50-50 on a guy from 5'10" to I think it was 6'3" or 6'4" that produce equally. So it really doesn't make any difference historically.
Okay, but I think along those lines, it seems to me like from having watched football for 25, 30 years, that it seems to me like just maybe in the last 10 years or so, there's been a very big emphasis on getting the big receivers coming out of college. It didn't seem to be like that as much when I was younger. I never heard them talk about needing the big 6'5" receiver. Okay?
Right.
So I think that maybe as you go forward, I would think that going forward that it's going to be the bigger receivers that are going to be the producers more often than not. But sometimes you will have the Steve Smiths, Antonio Browns, guys like that who are just phenomenal under smaller.
Odell
Beckham. There's a couple of reasons. Odell Beckham's extremely strong. What is he? 6 foot, 6'1", something like that.
Somewhere around there, 6 footish.
I would take Doxson for 2 reasons. One, I do like his size better than Corey Coleman, and I think going forward, that like I said, I think the bigger receivers are going to be a little bit more successful. But number 2 is the situation that they're in. The Browns are a perennial loser. Terrell Pryor looks like he is a legitimate number 1 receiver. And
I'll give you that.
And if they re-sign him, that means that Coleman more than likely is going to be a number 2 receiver for them, and they still have to find a competent quarterback. Okay.
Right.
So my whole thing is Josh Doxson, with Deshaun Jackson getting older, Pierre Garçon getting older, both unrestricted free agents, possibly on their way out. Jordan Reed, injury question mark. He has the opportunity to step into a high-powered offense and become the number 1, at worst, number 2 receiver right away.
Yeah, I'm not saying he's not going to be solid. I'm just saying him.
I think he's more polished than Coleman, and he's in a better situation.
This situation is completely superior.
I think the ceiling is better for Coleman. I think the floor is much higher for Doxson.
Better quarterback, better offensive line.
So moving on.
So
let's move on for time constraints here. Mine is going to be Todd Gurley. Okay, and the reason why I say my biggest buy is Todd Gurley is because everybody's talking about how he disappointed this season, and some people are even saying he may drop to a 3rd round pick. Okay, in dynasty startups. Okay, I don't see that happening, guys. Todd Gurley is very talented. All you got to do is say one word. Okay, Rams. Okay, they're not going to add 2 words to that. Jeff Fisher.
Yeah.
Okay. He's no longer there. They've got some pieces in place. Okay, they've got their quarterback, who he's young. He hasn't proven anything yet. But I'll tell you one thing: Goff has played better than he did in the preseason for sure. Okay, so he's only going to get better because he can't get much worse.
Yeah.
All right. They need a big time wide receiver there. They need to get with that market with where they're at now. They need to bring in a big time wide receiver, and as soon as they do that, okay. They've got. I don't think Lance Kendricks is anything special, but right now, him and Britt are their 2 leading receivers.
Name me an offensive lineman on the Rams.
Is Orlando Pace
right.
still playing?
Yeah. I mean, and when Gurley when they get those pieces around him, and when they do, and I think they're going to focus on that in the draft. I think they're going to focus on their offensive line, and even if they keep the receivers this year, I think they're focused on the offensive line. To build that up, I think Gurley's going to have a better season. If this is the worst that Gurley plays, you're still getting a running back too.
Because of his proficiency out of the backfield.
36 catches.
Pass catcher, yes.
36 catches. I mean, yes, he has it. Yes, he doesn't have a great yards per carry, but it's because of that offensive line as well. And like I said before, I think he's at 700, 800 yards. He's on pace for maybe 900 this year. The bottom line is if that's the worst that you get from Todd Gurley, that's still running back 2 numbers. Some of the comparisons comparisons that I'm hearing to him being the next Trent Richardson are absurd. He's
Right.
not Trent Richardson. He doesn't have a problem with his weight. He knows how to play and run the ball. And when they get their team in place, I think next year he's going to be a very, very buy player.
But he's definitely been one of the biggest busts of 2016, without a doubt. And because of that, his value should be depressed, and he should be a good buy, like you said, in 2017.
I agree.
And that works out great into our next segment. Likes for this week. I like Todd Gurley this week. He plays the San Francisco 49ers, and they have been awful the last 4 or 5 games against the run. Don't be afraid to plug him in and play.
Yeah. Well, and one thing I want to focus on too is who would you sell on?
Who would I sell on?
Yeah.
As far as heading into next year, dynasty-wise, for keeper leagues, I'm going to sell Rob Gronkowski. And I actually wrote about this a couple of weeks ago. 1 week prior to the back injury, I got lucky and I wrote about this in my little segment that I do for DraftStars.net, right? DraftStars.net.
DraftStars.net.
Yes, great website. Very a lot of information on there, including an article from Justin on waiver wire pickups every week, and I have a buy sell for Dynasty that I do every week as well. Gronkowski, a couple of factors going on here. His quarterback play has been phenomenal, but Brady's 39, 40 years old.
Yeah.
So a year or two, he's going to fall off. He's either going to retire or he's going to fall off dramatically. And when he does that, Gronkowski's numbers will suffer. Also, the injury history, he's injury prone. And he's had some major injuries.
Yeah.
So at 27, 28 years old, Gronkowski, I think if you can still get top-notch value for him, I think that you trade him away and look somewhere else. Go with somebody younger.
And I would agree with that because I have Gronk in, I'm in 10 Dynasty leagues. And I had Gronk in 7 of them. And I had 4 leagues where all I had to do was win in week 13 to make it to the playoffs. And I had him in all my leagues, and he didn't play. And I lost by probably a combination of 5 to 6 points in each one of those leagues. It's getting to the point now to where, you're right. He is hurting teams almost as much as he's helping them, because he just can't stay healthy.
And consistency in dynasty football is important.
Key.
Right.
Key. Who do you think?
My sell is DeMarco Murray.
Yep.
He had an epic year. I think he's second in the league in rushing yards. But there's a couple of reasons that I want to sell him. And it may be a year early, but I'd rather sell a year early than too late. I think that's an important thing to do in Dynasty.
Especially in Dynasty.
That is a motto to live by in Dynasty League football right there. And I heard you say it the first time. When I caught it, and I've glommed onto that. That's definitely a good philosophy to have.
So important. First, Derrick Henry, they drafted him in the second round, and drafting a running back in this era in the second round is almost saying he's a first-round pick. He has first-round pick talent. He runs the ball really well. He catches the ball pretty well, even though he didn't do that a whole lot in Alabama. At some point, he's going to be the featured running back. The other thing is the age of DeMarco Murray. There's a point, and I won't say too much about that study. There's a point where a running back reaches a certain age and he falls off 20 to 30% in production. I would get rid of DeMarco Murray early for that reason.
I would agree with that wholeheartedly. I think that he had kind of an amazing turnaround or comeback this year. I think a lot of people wrote him off for dead after his bad year with the Eagles last year. He's 28, 29?
I think he's 28.
Okay, 28. He'll be 29 heading into next year.
Yeah.
So he's getting dangerously close to that running back cliff. And like you said, he's getting pushed. The Titans cannot keep Henry on the bench forever. I think we'll go to more of a 50-50 next year between him and Murray.
And he was my first running back pick in a zero running back redraft league. He was the 6th round pick.
Murray?
Murray was.
Oh, nice.
And I'm in the shit because of it.
Yeah. And in case in point to what they're saying, is exactly right. You want to sell on your player, especially in Dynasty football, before they lose your value. People that have hung on, I'm not picking on anybody, but people that have hung on to AP is case in point. I mean, if you would have got rid of him last year at his peak value,
Well, in my defense, I tried to get rid of him last year.
Yeah.
Because I took over that team, I want to say 3 years ago, and AP was still looking good. I rode him for 1 year, and then he had the year, 2 years ago, where he got in trouble for whipping his kid or whatever.
Yeah.
So he was out for an entire year.
Right.
And then he came back last year, and I didn't even have an opportunity. I did not have an opportunity to get rid of him. Nobody would give me value for him.
Right, exactly. But that's a case in point of what we're talking about.
Right.
Be ahead of the curve.
Very much.
I mean, Yes, Murray is a stud.
Yes, because if you hold on to Murray, and let's say Murray puts up a good year next year,
Right.
1,000 yards, whatever, but he doesn't look the same, and Henry's cutting into his time, his trade value has went way, way down.
And good luck dealing him with that.
Exactly.
Well, good luck dealing Peterson.
Well,
And it's the case in point because of the fact that you may still you're not going to get very much for him like you would last year.
No, it got to the point
Right.
where I was not able to get enough. It just made sense for me to hold on to him and just keep him
Right.
until he retires because I couldn't get anything for him.
Yeah.
And my sell is going to be somebody that had a great year and everybody's talking about him. He's got the biggest buzz this year, but I'm just not buying it, and that's Melvin Gordon.
Mm-hmm.
And my sell is going to be Melvin Gordon. Listen, I'm a Panthers fan, but I love the way Phillip Rivers plays. I love the way the Chargers fight every week. They always find a way to lose the game, but I love the way that they fight every week.
He does
Melvin,
more with less.
He does,
Oh,
man.
man, he's
I've
impressive.
never seen a quarterback that does so much with the least talent that they have. But on to Melvin Gordon, people, the numbers that he has right now, I think are very, very are kind of hidden. And the reason why I say this is because he's only averaging 3.9 yards per carry right now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, he's catching the football. He's got 41 catches. I'm not saying that he's going to fall off and be a horrible running back, but I think he's more of an RB2. And I think next year in the draft, a lot of people are going to take him as a running back one. And I'm not saying that he can't be a running back one in certain weeks, but you got to remember, Danny Woodhead will be back. I don't care if he's 47 years old or not.
Yep.
He will be back.
So will Keenan Allen.
Yeah, Keenan Allen will be
Right.
back as well.
So-
and he'll be and Hunter Henry.
And Hunter Henry is going to ascend,
come on.
yes.
He's going to emerge. And, they've got other wide receivers that aren't playing bad either.
Tyrell Williams.
And
He looks good.
That's
Yep.
another guy right there that I honestly feel like is it could be a very
I think
good
their
wide
offense.
He's a good buy.
I think their
Yeah.
offense could look dramatically different next year.
Yes.
Very pass heavy, and I think that with splitting time with Woodhead, like you said, I think
Right.
that his value
Right.
way
Be
down.
very careful
I agree.
with Melvin Gordon next year when you draft him, because I honestly feel like that theuld a chance that he could hurt you.
We've got about 1 minute. I know people probably want to know about what week 16 and what we've got going on. Some likes and dislikes that we've got for week 16. We literally have about 1 minute. So my like for week 16, Jay Ajayi. Okay. I like him. He put up 200 on the Bills last time he faced them.
Mm-hmm.
The Dolphins line was healthier then.
Mm-hmm.
And Marcel Darius, I don't believe, played for the Bills, but I still think it's going to be a slugfest in the cold in Orchard Park, and I think that it's going to be a LaShawn McCoy versus Jay Ajayi match, and the Dolphins will give Ajayi every opportunity to put up some yards. I bet he gets 20-plus carries.
Yep.
Okay, and mine is going to be Tyler Lockett. Okay,
Mhm.
this week against Arizona. I would look for Tyler Lockett. Russell Wilson has not played well. I think he could be up there for one of the biggest busts as well.
Mhm.
Okay, he's not played well. But if you look at what Brandon Cooks did last week against Arizona, 186 yards, 2 touchdowns. Okay, I'm not saying Lockett is a Brandon Cooks, but they're both small, speedy receivers, and I do think that Tyler Lockett could get behind that defense or get ahead of that defense and get up there. And if Wilson's, if he scatters and he can get out there and throw that football deep, I think Lockett's going to be your man.
I'll give you one more. I gave you Todd Gurley earlier. I like DeAndre Hopkins this week. Tom Savage. I didn't know Brock Osweiler was that terrible.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he was bad, but he is god awful. Thanks to that dude for eternity. Put in DeAndre Hopkins and play him this week.
Well, yeah, and DeAndre Hopkins should probably be played every
Isn't
single week.
Tom Savage an adult film star? I think he might be.
Or it could be Fred Savage from the Wonder Years. One or the other.
He's not an adult film
Yeah,
star.
exactly. He's not. Guys,
Not to my knowledge.
One thing that we want to say to you as well is you can check us out on Twitter. You can send us questions on Twitter at DougCarroll5, or you can email us at justin@draftstars.net as well, and you can ask us any questions that you want. We will try to answer them, as fast as we possibly can. We want to thank you for watching our first ever edition. Hopefully you guys weren't bored to death. Hopefully you stay tuned and you watch us. We promise that we'll only get better. We're not going to get worse. And we want to thank you for.
I can always get
watching.
worse. I'll say that.
Yeah, right. We want to thank you for watching Dynasty Master, the Fantasy Football Video Podcast. Thanks again, guys. Have a Merry Christmas, and we will talk to you again real soon.
Merry
Happy
Christmas.
holidays.
Yeah.